So there's at least one time at the end in chapter 10. I want to point out, though, in chapter 10, we won't get to it yet, but I want to point out while we're here that all the prophets are speaking about the end of the world. And this history up here, this is the history of the midnight cry for the priest. This is the midnight cry for the priest. Did I spell priest wrong? The I-E wrong? Okay, so this is the counterfeit in here. This is P&T, the counterfeit midnight cry, but this is the true midnight cry message. Okay? And you can show that when the true midnight cry message goes forth, you're going to have a counterfeit. And we know that in this movement. You got the Watertown group doing their thing over in their tent with their spiritualistic activities, while Samuel Snow's opening up the midnight cry in God's tent. So we have to have one here, and the counterfeit precedes the true. So you've got here the visual test. And the visual test is the second test, and the midnight cry is the empowerment of the second angel's message. Okay, the midnight cry is the second angel, but the midnight cry is when the second angel is empowered. But the second angel is the visual test. So when Parminder's saying to the women, you got to start dressing like men, you got to be men now, and this is our visual test. This is the counterfeit that's preceding the true, so this is the true. So we know that when we see a doubling, that you're at the midnight cry, correct? So in Daniel 10, in verse 19. I'm in Daniel 10. In Daniel 10, we went back to Daniel 10:1 to show the time of the end. Verse 19 says, I'll read 18 and 19. Then there came and touched me one like the appearance of a man, and he strengthened me, and said, O man, greatly beloved, fear not. Peace be unto thee. Be strong, yea, be strong. And when he had spoken unto me, I was strengthened, and said, Let my Lord speak, for thou hast strengthened me. Okay, in verse 18, what's just happened to Daniel? Third touch. Third touch. One touch, two touch, three touch. And when he's made strong here, what's he going to do? What's Gabriel going to do at this point? He's going to open up Daniel 11 to him. You see the parallel? Yes? You guys are all looking down at the page. Okay, so as Daniel's getting touched 3 times, what is Daniel? You can't answer this correctly unless I've talked to you about it, because it's not really there in the passage. He's dead. Why is he dead? He has no breath. He's dead. Okay, in verse 17, right before verse 18, it says, For how can the servant of this my Lord talk with this my Lord? There's a doubling, this my Lord, this my Lord. For as for me, straightway there remaineth no strength in me, neither is there breath left in me. So whoever Daniel is, before this third touch, he's dead. But Daniel is going to be made strong, doubled. He's going to be strengthened with the midnight cry message, and from this point on, what's opened up to him is Daniel 11, which I'm saying is Daniel 11:40-45. So Daniel's representing the one who the midnight cry message is opened up to. It can be a group of people or it can be a singular person. And at this point, I want to say it's a singular person to make my point about him being dead. When Sister White describes the midnight cry history in the Millerite time period, what history does she use to illustrate it? When Sister White describes the midnight cry history of the Millerite time period, what history does she use to illustrate it? The triumphal entry of Christ into Jerusalem. Christ never rode an animal, he always walked. The only time he ever rode an animal was on the triumphal entry. And I don't know if this would be true because he's the creator and he was Jesus, but when I told this line in Africa, I told the story about the first time I ever rode a horse. And it was okay. It was one of these rental horses. And you go out to the point, you go a couple miles out and everything's fine. But as soon as that horse knows that it's time to go back to the stall, then he just turns and he runs up and you're just scared to death. So what I was suggesting is that this is the first time, according to Sister White, that Jesus was ever on an animal riding it. So he may not have been familiar with how to ride a horse or an ass, right? So what did they do? There was someone that led that ass into Jerusalem. Who was it? And what was Lazarus? He was someone that had been dead. So this subject about don't listen to Brother Jeff, he's been dead, this is a subject of prophecy. And anyone that wants to actually tell themselves that I'm dead as they're watching me speak has got some kind of mental condition, okay? I'm not dead, all right? But if you want to argue that at the prophetic level, somehow spiritually, I am dead, then you're on the right track. You're on the right track. You need to come to grips with that, because when it comes to the Midnight Cry message, there's two. There's a counterfeit back here with Parminder and Tess, and then there's a true. There's two classes of worshipers in this history. And the subject of the messenger being dead is a subject of prophecy.
Real quick, concerning the death of Lazarus, after he was raised, the Jewish leaders were just frantic as to what to do, so they had to figure out something to do about this matter that he was raised from the dead. So I can see the parallel there, what this movement trying to do about Lazarus' resurrection.
Yeah, and if you go back and look at the attack, the subtle, insidious attack that Parminder made upon myself and this ministry, it was over a long period of time, and it was progressive. Yep. It was a progressive destruction. Yes, and how long was Lazarus in the grave? 4 days, which is a symbol of a progressive disintegration. Okay, so he stinketh, okay? He stinketh at this point. But anyway, right here, Daniel's being resurrected because Daniel's given the Midnight Cry message, and Lazarus is the one that takes the Midnight Cry message into Jerusalem. And the messenger is a subject of, you got your Great Controversy? Yep. Great Controversy 343, there's a classic paragraph we use about the reformatory movements paralleling one another. But what does the next paragraph say? You're leaving early. I know. Bring the baby.
No truth is more.
There you go. No truth
is more clearly taught in the Bible than that God, by His Holy Spirit, expressly directs His servants on earth in the great movements for the carrying forward of the work of salvation.
No truth is more clearly taught than God directs His servants, okay? So when you take a reform line, you have the time of the end, you have the increase of knowledge, you have the message formalized, you have the message empowered. In all the waymarks, the waymark that is more clearly taught than any other waymark is the messenger. Okay, the messenger chosen. So in the messenger here at the end of the world, among other things, he was typified by Elijah and John the Baptist. Did Elijah die? No. Did John the Baptist die? So this subject about the messenger dying is a subject of Bible prophecy. And it's at one level, it's just a foolishness that Parminder and Tess would say, you can't listen to him, you're forbidden to listen to Brother Jeff because he's dead. And it's even more foolish that people actually bought into that. But they had to make this foolish claim in order to agitate this subject, because it's, at one level, it's a choice between the counterfeit messenger and the true messenger. And one of the subjects of those two messengers is which one of them is dead. Because one of them is dead. One of them has a message of life and one of them has a message of death. So go to Isaiah